Hello, my name is Sheila Long, and today we'll be discussing the themes of the Everlasting Father, mythic quest, and rebellion in James Baldwin's novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain. This novel offers a conflicting view on religion and is often debated whether it's trying to show it in a positive or a negative light. In all actuality, though, this was just a reflection of Baldwin's own complicated relationship with Christianity and doesn't decide either way. The negatives that are highlighted in this book include the oppressive father figure, causing difficulty to love yourself and those around you, and a constant sense of doom. When on the other side, the positives include that Christianity was a necessary part of protagonist John's character development. It strives for love and rising above the hatred of the world, and it brings a sense of community to all of its members. This portrayal of both sides shows that Baldwin was not limited to this binary thinking of picking one side or the other. The whole novel takes place in a format of a mythological quest and a hero. So John, who is our hero, can be characterized by his how he undergoes a series of trials and has mythological guides such as Elijah, and his success contrasting with those around him who all seem to fail. His descent into spiritual darkness is the beginning of his journey of self-discovery, and is rather a story of one's power to transcend their environment. This displays the truth of the mythological spiritual potential of the human being. One of the major themes of the novel is the complicated father-son relationship. John views both his father, who is really his stepfather, and God as his father figures. And this is a reflection of Baldwin's own relationship with his stepfather and the complexity of it. He has a constant search for a sympathetic father or God, and this dual side of a quest for fatherly love and rebellion against their injustice. He has a constant longing for the father that sparks the journey that transforms into a quest for himself. James Baldwin had a very complicated relationship with the church, as mentioned before, and this was one of the many African-American pieces of literature that embodies a tension between faith in God and the treatment of black people by the supposedly faithful white oppressors. Baldwin is noted as the first black American writer to so openly question the justice, judgment, and sincerity of God, and was rather shocking at the time. He highlights that there's a failure of universal love in this flaw in the church system that they have. And this stems from an image of God being an Old Testament figure, threatening the punishment and condemnation and inspiring intimidation rather than the love that they preach. Fear, guilt, and anger are a very prevalent issue throughout the novel for all of the characters, really. And it's a result of this church's image of God. In John, our protagonist, he has a fear of sexuality, rejection by his father, and God's judgment. Gabriel, the father, has a fear of not having sons to carry his holy work, and guilt of abandonment. Florence, the aunt, has a fear for her soul as she's approaching death, guilt over leaving the mother, and anger at her brother and all men in general. Then Elizabeth, John's mother, fears condemnation for not repenting love for Richard and having a child out of wedlock. The sinner versus the Christian is one of the main themes of those outside the church acting with less conflict and guilt than those who are members. Elizabeth's father, Esther, and Richard all are examples of sinners, as they would say, but did not have as many problems as those who called themselves Christians. All of these non-religious characters with perhaps purer hearts are in fact tragically dead, though. And Florence states, talking about the Lord done changed their hearts. Ain't nothing happened to them. They've got the same old black hearts they was born with. This is very powerful, showing that even though they are born-again Christians, they still do carry the same sinner aspect as those around them, and are not in fact better, even though they may think that they are. This is where John's inner conflict of religious duty and following his desires is drawn from. Moving on to the mythological quest. Guilt, doom, hostility, and hopelessness are introduced by the church and are countered and overcome through John's completion of this mythological quest. These adventures can be classified by Joseph Campbell as separation, initiation, and return. Starting with the separation, this moment in the novel is defined by John's wishing to curse God while angrily staring at the altar at the beginning of the novel. There is always a call to adventure, which is destiny summoning to the hero and his spiritual center from the pale of society and into the unknown, much like Elsa in Frozen when she sings Into the Unknown. Preparation for creative acts that could derive from dying of the world and or self, and suffering of spiritual darkness often presented as the belly of the whale, as with Jonah in the Bible. The second phase of this journey is initiation. These are the trials that the hero must survive and are the low point of the character. There is a pain of breaking through previous limitations, and is also noted for the torment in the pit, which is falling further into darkness than the hero had ever thought possible before. This moment for John in the novel is when he's laying on the floor helplessly screaming. And there's always a voice at the bottom of the abyss that acts as a climax and a turning point. Finally, the last stage is the return, when the hero comes back reborn and filled with his creative power. All saints in the temple recognize John's transformation, except for Gabriel, who does so grudgingly and mistrustful. So he didn't exactly win that, but there's always a obstacle when the hero returns. This moment could prove to be the most difficult when bringing your newfound knowledge back to society, as found in Plato's cave, when a prisoner would go outside and saw the light for the first time, tried to come back and free the other prisoners, but they revolted against him, and that was actually the hardest part for this prisoner who experienced the outside world and came back. And although the novel ends before we can see how John's reemergence in society really plays out, we can infer that it will enter difficulty due to this format and pattern that happens in other novels. The most difficult threshold that he may encounter, as I said before, would be his relationship with his father. In the end, this brings inspiration to the reader by use of his mythological motifs. Go Tell It on the Mountain uses protagonist John to inspire us with a heightened belief in our power to overcome the obstacles and to know ourselves. This inspiration and strength from the myth are not meant to oppose or replace religious faith, but offer a parallel source of spiritual guidance.